Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Marina, and I'm here with my fellow Formula One friends, Jason, Tristan, and Steven. And we have a bit of a different episode today for you guys as we recap the 2023 F1 season and how we think all the drivers did. We're going to go in backwards championship order, constructor championship order. Let's start with Haas. Kevin Magnussen finished P19 in the Drivers' Championship, only 3 points, 5 DNFs and 3 points finishes total, so all P10.
Yeah, just like I was literally about to say, I think you were about to take the words out of my mouth. Just the most underwhelming season ever, underperforming as well, all around. I mean, 5 DNFs. It's third in the highest standings of total DNFs throughout the entire year for K Mag. Obviously, you never want to be in the podium in that category.
No.
But even, I mean, Hulkenberg, 9 points, marginally better. Just not a season. We're not. But I think if I ask all four of you, well, three of you, are we surprised?
No.
Not really. No. I mean, it was an expected result, but you still want to see Haas. They're in that seat every year. They're always battling back in like 17th to 20th. You want to see them at least getting up maybe in the top 10, possibly. So disappointing.
They're
Still
good in quali. But
good in quali, but what does that matter? I mean,
And I think that quali pace is what we saw early in Bahrain testing, because at the end of Bahrain testing, they were like fifth. I think people said they were like projected to be like fifth in the constructors or something like that. And they didn't have the race pace. They had really bad tire drag all season, couldn't keep their tire temp. It just, even when they qualified, I mean, there were several times when Nico Hulkenberg made it into Q3, qualified in the top 10, just dropped all the way back,
Yep.
Yeah. So, and with that, you did mention it, Nico Hulkenberg, 9 points, 2 DNFs, and 2 points finishes. So, in terms of quality of his races, I guess he had worse races. But he finished a little higher when he had those, standout moments.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only highlight I can really think of marginally for Nico throughout the whole season, sure, he had like 1 or 2 standout moments, but he also did start his 200th Grand Prix this year at Mexico. So, I mean, that's a milestone. It's always cool to celebrate, see your longevity in the sport. I mean, he started, in 2010 with Williams, I believe.
Wow.
So, 13 years. I mean, also, credit for the guy. He still looks strapping. The guy looks young. So, I mean, I don't know if that's just the German genes. We can look at Seb. He still looks like he's, young. I mean, not as young as he did.
Give him hair. If he cut his hair, he would look very,
exactly. Looks like, a hippie out there with the long hair. But is what it is. So 200 races, that's still impressive.
Yeah. And I think one of his best of races of the year for sure was Australia, finished in the points. There was that big crash at the end, red flag and restart, which kind of caught a lot of drivers out, some unexpected points finishes, and also some drivers that got, lost out with those crashes. If we move on to Alfa Romeo, they finished 9th in the constructors, with Zhou Guanyu finishing 18th with 6 points, 3 DNFs, and 3 points finishes. Again, another team that I feel like was underwhelming and kind of just, there's not a lot to talk about. Like, I feel like they were just so consistently in the back. I don't know.
I'm surprised they beat Haas. Like, Haas always had standout qualifyings here and there.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo never really felt like that, but they still got enough points.
That's true.
Like, both the drivers are pretty on par with each other. Valtteri with 10 points, Guan Yu with 6. Like, they're like there, but at the back.
They're surviving.
Yeah. I think Alfa Romeo's highlight of the season was Valtteri Bottas making his Bots ass calendar with 12 pictures of ass and raising $150,000 for charity.
What charity was that for? I gotta know.
Gotta know what charity that goes to. Oh man.
Yeah, literally, like
they get that butt money.
I think it's a cancer thing because it was for Movember.
Whatever you got to do to make some money, especially for a good cause. So nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, true.
For sure.
Shout out real quick. Guan Yu Zhou had the fastest lap of Bahrain. So that was cool. Kind of reminded me when K-Mag got the fastest lap in Singapore. That was like 2018, 2019, fastest lap Singapore. Yeah, so fastest lap for Guan Yu Zhou, first one, I think.
Here's the question I want to pose. Do we think, obviously Valtteri did great as a second driver for Mercedes, but do we think he has the potential to be a good, number one driver, even for a team like Alpha. Like,
I mean,
I don't
arguably
know.
he is the number one driver at Alfa Romeo. But I see your point to where, I mean, a lot
Yeah,
of people, there's on the Checo side of things, there's like he's underperforming. But for Bottas, it was like he never really won many races. He did win
right.
several, but throughout the season, he was definitely behind Hamilton a lot more than he was in front of Hamilton. But we were always talking about how consistent he was because he was consistently in that second place position.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Except
I think
2018 was a dip in form. I remember that. Like Valtteri was like okay in 17 and 18 he finished like fourth or fifth. Like I think
Yeah.
the Red Bull drivers beat him, and that was like
he was fifth. Yeah.
big pressure to improve. He improved
Yeah.
next year, but so did Mercedes. So who knows? Who knows how much of that was him and how much of that was Mercedes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot
That's
can
gonna
be
be
said as
ESPN
well.
E60 someday.
Yeah. I think a lot can be said as well about the security, the mental security that he has of like having a multi-year contract, which I think could make kind of a driver relax a bit more. That
That's
could
true.
have a negative effect on him if we look back at it, saying, well, maybe he's not, he doesn't have that pressure to perform, so he's not doing as well. But on the other hand, to be like, well, I have more, I can, take the chance here to make the overtake because I know that a DNF here is not going to get me fired.
Yeah. Well, to that point, actually, I think Alpha should add more incentives to his contract. I think that would help a lot. Just to get him to actually like the more money he makes or the more progress he makes, the more money he gets.
Well, I think
think that would
Alpha is
help a
really
lot.
hoping for him to not step up. I mean, I'm sure he's doing a great job, but they're hoping for him to be that mentor, that role model
Exactly.
for Joe or whoever they bring in. Granted, Joe, it's only his second season, not in the fastest car, but he still got beat in points by his teammate. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what I would be hoping for if I was the boss. It was like, listen, we got this guy. Sure, he was second fiddle to Lewis Hamilton most of his career, but he was still in an amazing car, still won a good amount of races, podiums up the wazoo. You would hope that he would maybe be able to translate a little bit of knowledge to Joe, so Joe in his sophomore season could be better than him. Didn't happen. So
Yeah.
I think we just got to look forward to 2024 and maybe see Alpha, maybe limelight. Who knows? Maybe they'll get up there in the top 15 drivers, whatever happens.
Yeah, maybe it's the car, but I'd say arguably they both had worse seasons this year than they did last year.
Oh, true.
Joe came in, I think he had points in his very first race, if I'm not mistaken. He had some really good finishes, some really good races, some really good qualifyings last year, and I feel like he didn't have that standout this year.
He repeated with the exact same stats as last year. Like he had 6 points last year, and how many points? 3 points finishes. Yeah, he had that rookie year and this year 3 and 3. So and then
not much improvement.
So kind of like a repeat.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to AlphaTauri. They had quite a hectic season, using all 4 of their allocated drivers that they were allowed to use in a season. Yuki Tsunoda being the only consistent one throughout the season. He had 17 points, P14 in the championship, 6 points finishes, and 3 DNFs. He had a consistent season, is what I think. I mean, he had a lot going on around him in terms of like constantly funneling teammates, and sometimes those teammates got the better of him. Like Liam Lawson had a couple really good races, Daniel had a couple good races, a couple good qualifyings, but he was consistent. I mean, he had 3 consecutive P11 finishes, which like poor him, like right outside the points. But
yeah, you know what? Just outside the top 10, that's not a bad thing for like one of your first seasons. I mean,
Yeah.
Third season?
Yeah, I think it's his third season. Which still, I mean, 3 seasons is, it's not, I mean,
That's
it's
not
insane amount
terrible.
of time. But like to me, it's just I heard for those, it's literally the smallest number. Oh, not a small number, but 3 DNFs. Let's say we get rid of those DNFs and Yuki manages to finish however he does in any of those races. He was knocked out in any way. Maybe there's a better performance there. Maybe we see Yuki up in like 15th or he finished 14th in the points, closer to the top 10. It's just consistency. Like he was consistent, like you said, in the races he finished. But if you can just somehow take away those 3 DNFs where he actually finishes on the lead lap in those races, I don't know. That's the one thing I think that hinders his season this year. It wasn't remarkable in any way, shape, or form, but I don't know. Those 3 races could have meant a big deal.
The thing is too, I mean, I don't know if you guys would know this, but like if the DNFs were like Carr's fault or if that was like his fault, just like crashing out.
I don't even remember what his DNFs were. I'm completely honest. He did have DNS at the Italian Grand Prix. He had an issue on the formation lap, and he had, I don't know what the other ones were. Honestly, I cannot.
Because like if it's like an AlphaTauri problem, then it's like there's not really much you can do about it. But
I want to say it was like Jeddah or something. He had not Jeddah. He had a DNF on a street track that was like a car failure, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But
so,
he did,
Yeah,
but he did have some better races. 2 of his points finishes were this last race in Abu Dhabi, finished P8 on pure pace. He had a P8 also in Austin, but that was because of the 2 disqualifications of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, which we'll maybe talk about a little later. But that was Abu Dhabi was pure pace. That was him putting the car, at the right point in qualifying, getting through, and then making up some positions in the race.
He's definitely earned a spot in F1.
Yeah,
I don't think he's a driver that's maybe at risk for a seat like Logan, but at the same time, he has work to do. Like, he's not ready. Some people speculating like, oh, he could be in that Red Bull seat if Checo's out. No way.
No.
Honestly, and this is nothing against, like, I don't have anything against Yuki. I think he's an excellent driver, a great character. I don't think he's ready. And I think that if they were to do something like that with Yuki, he would end up in a similar position as Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly, that would just, I think, simply put in that seat too early.
Yeah. I just think if we get him, if they get him a better AlphaTauri, season's coming, and kind of see how he does, and if he shows improvement, then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
True.
For sure. Well, moving on to the first of many AlphaTauri drivers in that second seat, Nick de Vries, sacked after, what was it, like 7 races?
I can't remember exactly.
Anyways, no points, but only 2 DNFs, and I thought it was more than that.
Well, how many races did he actually race?
I want to say it was after Silverstone, so I want to say that was like 7 or 8.
It was 10 races.
Yeah,
that's 10 races.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
And it's like he got that ultimatum in Baku already when he crashed the car.
Yeah.
That was only the 4th race in, and it still took him.
Yeah. Well, his highest finish was 12th, so
not bad.
Understandable why he was sacked, but I don't know. I think it was a little early.
I think it's one of the biggest question marks of the season. Because obviously it was big breaking news when it happened. He went radio silent on social media. Obviously eventually posting and saying, it was because there was that cloud around it. Like, was it due to performance? Was it because the team wanted to go in a different, I think it was obviously due to performance, but like he wasn't really doing terrible. Obviously 2 DNFs in, 10 starts in the season. That's 25% of the season you're out of the race, essentially, which is, I don't know. I don't like those odds, but still.
But you never know what would have happened if he had stayed in the seat. Like, Esteban, I think, at that point in the season had more DNFs than Nick de Vries did.
Oh, yeah. Esteban's a whole nother can of worms. He was number 1 in DNFs, right? I think 7? Something like that. You look at that situation, like you're saying, and it's like, well, why does he get the green flag to stay in the seat, but meanwhile, Nick gets booted? I don't know. I think it's still a question mark to this day.
I don't know. By that point, in the same time frame, Yuki Tsunoda had 2 points finishes, and he was consistently matching or beating him. And this guy is experienced. This guy is older than Yuki Tsunoda. He has won 2 championships in Formula E in a pretty competitive field. He proved himself that he can drive fast in the Williams last year, albeit that was 1 race, and maybe he got lucky with the 1 race Williams were competitive at. But I don't know. I don't really blame AlphaTauri for letting him go early. He's an experienced driver. He's not a rookie. He's been in F1 cars before. He's been in open wheel racing series. He can handle the pressure. And if he can't perform, he can't perform. He did not deserve the same amount of slack that a rookie gets. So
I think to him being fired. I think to your point is interesting, just kind of looking at like the drivers they had. Like you said, Nick de Vries and also Danny Rick. Those are 2 experienced guys. Those are 2 guys that have proven in the sport that they can be, they're kind of like glorified backups, I feel like. You got Liam and you got Yuki Tsunoda. I think those are you're kind of experimental type of guys. You're younger guys that you kind of put in to kind of see how they do. Obviously, I think Yuki Tsunoda was, as we were saying, more consistent. But yeah, I mean, with DeVries, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he did all right. So I think it seemed like AlphaTauri was just trying things this year, and they had two backers to kind of help them out.
And another point that I wanted to make is I think he was in, like, there's 3 rookies this year, right? We had Logan was, I think, still put in the sport too early. I think that if he had come in going into this season in 2024, it would have been better for him. I just don't think he was ready for F1. He didn't finish top of the championship. I think he was like 6th in F2 or something like that. And I think everyone can agree that the main reason that he was in F1 was because of he's American, and that comes with American sponsorship and all of that. All that goes with that, especially with the booming American market at the moment. But Logan taken away, he was being compared to Oscar Piastri, who was also very experienced, won championships in his first year in every category. So
Logan was talented. He finished 4th in his first full season of Formula 2. Like, he did a couple Formula 2 races in 2021, but in 2022, 28 races, he finished 4th. I think he could have won the championship one more year. I agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That is true.
Yeah, I think
I guess I'm not that upset that he was still retained for next year. Because
I think next year will be a much better year for Logan. But I think just in terms of, at the very beginning of the year, McLaren were kind of where AlphaTauri's at. And then you're comparing what is Oscar doing with this car and what is Nick DeVries doing with this car. And Nick DeVries is supposed to be the more experienced, better driver. He had worse results. So I guess I kind of agree with what you guys are saying. But drivers to take over for Nick DeVries, Danny Ricciardo, wasn't able to do many things before crashing. And unfortunately being, again, replaced by Liam Lawson. Liam finished ahead of Nick DeVries in the championship with 1 points finished. No DNFs in his 5 races.
Yep.
Even in a race where he picked up right for free practice qualifying, and so
that to me is the perfect super sub you can ask for. He got a point. He didn't wreck the car. That's it. I mean, granted, we got to see a light. We got to see a new light and a new driver, potential face on the field. I mean, if I was Liam Lawson, that short stint would have made my year. I mean, it's nothing flashy, but he got the job done. Cars in one piece for every single race. Managed to get a point. Was actually pretty close to getting more. Like, I mean, he finished P11, I think twice. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
he was able to go back.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm Liam Lawson, I'm thrilled. I got my name out there. A lot of, like us, we're talking about him. I mean, that's all you can ask for at the end of the day.
Yeah. To your point on getting his name out there, Joe Sayward, who is a British F1 journalist, he has informed sources suggest that there's a provision in Ricciardo's contract for him to switch into Red Bull after the early races next year if Perez is not up to his game, and his replacement would be Liam Lawson. So
that was going to be my question. Yeah, like what Liam's role would be next year.
His name out there to be a replacement.
Yeah. Okay.
When anything happens, he's the next in line, I think, for sure. With how many junior drivers Red Bull has, I mean, I think they have like 6 in F2 or something like that. There's a lot of them. Oof. And they have more in F3, and they have more that are now in other categories, like Liam Lawson that went to Super Formula and stuff like that. So they have so many junior drivers. I think it was important for Liam to get in that seat. 5 races, no DNFs, got a point, and was able to actually contest Yuki several times. I mean, in the race that he found out that it was his last race with the team, they were battling it out first lap before there was, I don't know if it was a safety car or a red flag. I think it was a safety car. They were battling for the position, and he was like, I don't care if we crash. I'm going out with a bang, and I'm going to try and overtake him.
There you go.
Yeah, he was able to go back and win Super Formula. And even, I don't know, among the young Red Bull drivers, I like Enzo Fittipaldi right now. So we'll see.
Me too. Brazilian on the F1 grid would be great. There's him and Felipe Drukovic as well. And I think I've mentioned this on the podcast. I just think that the drivers that are winning F2 right now are at a disadvantage because this is the first year in F1 history that we haven't had any driver switches for going into next year. So
that is true.
The grid is so locked down. They're so competitive. It's so tight that I don't know if teams are particularly interested in taking that risk. If they were between Logan, for example, at Williams and someone else, I think they just go with the secure bet that I think at least Logan won't have as many crashes next year and he'll be good to hopefully score some more points.
No, you make an excellent point because it's like, as an F2 driver looking at the F1 field as it currently is, first of all, it's actually pretty young. I mean, there's a good amount of youth in the field. There's also, even the veterans don't seem like they're any eager to go away. I mean, you look at Lewis Hamilton, you look at Valtteri, I mean, they got deals going. As an F2 driver, I would be nervous. I'm like, I don't want to be stuck in this F2 seat for forever.
Yeah.
Maybe peak horizons looking at different sports like IndyCar or like, I mean, you could look at, even if you get crazy, maybe rally or something like that. I don't know. I mean, you could also Super GT. You got what's
Charles
Super
Leclerc's little brother Arthur is going to P3 next year.
Yeah, or IMSA. I mean, IMSA is always a solid bet. So yeah, no, I think that's an amazing point to bring up because there's a solid field of F2 drivers. I mean, and there's just not a lot of like seats opening up. It doesn't look like it. So
and to your point, actually, I was just kind of thinking about. I think, well, maybe not so much in recent years, but now especially, there's no drivers you can really look like they're like at least in the foreseeable future that may retire. I mean, maybe Kevin Magnussen or Fernando Alonso, but other than those two, it's like you don't really have anyone that's gonna be like moving out of the sport anytime soon, like you said.
Yeah. I think if you're going to have a driver replacement, it's going to be for someone who's not performing, not for someone that's chosen to leave.
Yeah,
I think even Max talks about retirement all the time. People are like, stop talking about retirement, at least for me. I'm like, I want to see you continue in the sport. But like, that's still like 2028. Like he's going to fill his contract till 2028. I think Lando has a similar length contract till 26 or 28. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are also in contract negotiations now. Ferrari want to lock that down before the start of next season. They're going to have long-term contracts. We've already seen longest Ferrari contract ever with Charles Leclerc with 5 seasons. 2019 to now. 2019 to next season, which is 5 years. So longest.
How long was Max's? Like, wasn't that till 2027?
2028.
2028.
Yeah,
that's pretty long too.
It's a really long contract as well. I think he signed that after Abu Dhabi 2021. So that's like what 8-year contract.
Yeah,
that's unheard of in almost any sport.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, you know what? I was just kind of thinking about maybe we could start seeing some like the guys in like your F2s, F3, F4s, maybe going to Formula E for a little bit and then make their way to Formula 1. I could see that.
There's been a lot of other moves to other series. Like I don't see IndyCar as much, but I see a lot of European drivers want to stay in European series until the F1 opportunity happens.
Yeah, they want to stay fresh too. I mean, a lot of them have reserve driver opportunities, but if they're going to be just in the simulator, it's not the same as being out on track. So we have drivers like Mick Schumacher, for example. He's a Mercedes reserve, but he's going to World Endurance as well.
Yeah.
So But moving on to Williams, like we talked about, Logan Sargent, he has retained his seat for 2024. I think they totally gave that away at Abu Dhabi with the team radio messages that they said, looking forward to working with you next season, this offseason and beyond. And then James Miles tried to go and save the announcement for PR, being like, no, we still have to go over stuff. And I was like, you have definitely signed that contract, especially how fast it went after Abu Dhabi. They released that. It's like they definitely already signed that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Logan, bit of a worse season, 7 DNFs, 1 points finish. Some of his better races being in the U.S. Best quality in Vegas with P6. Best, his only points finish in Austin.
He likes to do it at home.
He's been developing a bit. Like Albon, incredible season by Alex Albon. Albon never in doubt, talent in mind. It's just too bad he went to Red Bull too early. Like in that Toro Rosso, insane, lights out, so much better than like Kvyat or Hartley. I forget who was his teammate at Toro Rosso. Was it Gasly for a little bit?
No, Gasly replaced Albon at Red Bull. I think it was Daniel Kvyat.
It was the other way around. It was Gasly, Red Bull, and then Albon Red Bull
replaced him,
and Gasly stayed in AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
But Albon's still there. He's still performing.
I want to make a point on Alex is that if you look at his stats from Red Bull, and he talked about this in a recent interview, when he was at Red Bull, his average qualifying position in that year, in 2020, which is arguably much worse car, Max was in the 3rd, 4th range most of the time, his average qualifying position was 7.1. This year, best car on the grid by far, Checo's average qualifying position, 9.1.
Wow.
He had
That's
a better
interesting.
season. He had better season in the Red Bull than Pierre did, and than Checo has recently.
That's crazy.
So, like people were really hard on him, and ultimately at the time, everybody's like, he's having a really bad season. But if you compare him to his teammate, like couple tenths offs, we saw Checo in almost every session being almost half a second off of Max. So arguably the better driver, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He also finished 8 positions ahead of his teammate in the Drivers' Championship with 27 points compared to Logan's 1, only 4 DNFs and 7 points finishes. So,
yeah, I mean, it comes with the turf. I mean, I don't know. Rookie season for Logan. I mean, he obviously Albon has been proving himself within the past couple of years of just actually being a good driver, like you're saying, being consistent, able to lead a team if need be. So I don't know. I think that's as simple as it gets. Obviously, Logan could have been better. The 7 DNFs is a big problem, in my opinion. That needs to completely revert next season.
I agree.
Because, I mean, give or take, like I've been saying it, like give or take, get rid of half of those DNFs, maybe like 4 of them. Maybe he gets up to like 10 points, depending on his finishes. Like if he actually gets something going, could be huge. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Quick word on Logan. I'm sorry, but you know what he won this year? The Drivers, Constructors, Destructors Championship. He helped Williams to the top of the numbers to make sure they spent the most money on crashes. He was the most in costly.
Yeah.
Apparently, estimates are at $4.3 million in damages. So
Well,
still
yeah,
better than
definitely pocket
Schumacher,
change.
but sorry, I had to mention that W for the
Yeah.
boys at Williams.
Another L for Logan Sargent. He first season since 2020 that a driver has outqualified his teammate in every race. Alex Albon outqualified Logan Sargent every race this year, 22-0 in the qualifying head-to-heads. The last person to do it, 2020, Max on Alex. So a bit of revenge there. Max outqualifying Alex, and then Alex being like, "Well, I'm going to do the same to my teammate now. Prove how."
Uno reverse.
Uno reverse. Uno reverse. Anyways, moving on to Alpine. Not a good season for them. Esteban Ocon finished 12th, Pierre Gasly 11th in the Drivers' Championship. They were only 4 points apart with 58 and 62. But Esteban Ocon with 7 DNFs.
It breaks my heart.
7 DNFs. Starting with the very first race in Bahrain.
Yep.
I watched him park his car. I'm in Bahrain, sitting on the start-finish straight, watching him park his car outside of his grid box. Gets the penalty, serves the penalty incorrectly, gets another penalty for serving his first penalty incorrectly, and then gets a speeding in the pit lane penalty as he goes to properly serve his second penalty. And then DNFs.
He really started off the season with a bang. I mean, DNF, first of all, first driver to be penalized for the season, right?
Yep.
I believe. I mean, come on. It's the worst way to start possible, in my opinion. But I mean, rebounded a little bit. Granted, we say Alpine not a good season, but 6th amongst all the teams. Both drivers are more than halfway to 100 points. So, I mean,
extremely competitive pairing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're really close together.
Could have been a lot worse of a season for Alpine, given the history that these two drivers have with each other.
Yes.
Could have been at the top of the destructor standings.
Easily. I mean, Esteban really tried.
He only got 4th, Esteban.
Him and Gasly really tried at Australia. They crashed on the restart, both DNFing, huge damage. Team was not happy. They went back to France, and they had a meeting with Laurent, which is I think he's Alpine's CEO. And I wish I was a fly on the wall in that meeting, because that would have been hilarious.
Oh yeah, it's like getting chewed out by a school principal.
Yeah.
But they both had some pretty big highs this year. Both drivers having a podium. Esteban in Monaco and Pierre in Zandvoort. First race back after the summer break.
There you go. Good stuff.
I think that kind of speaks for itself. Like they had some highs, they had some lows.
They were good enough to stay ahead of the back markers like Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Haas. But they're just so far behind, like McLaren and Aston Martin.
Right.
They're in the
Yeah,
middle of
yeah.
like no man's
No.
land in the championship. They're way in front of everybody behind them, and everybody else
Yeah.
ahead were like way ahead. Like the
It's just the
final race,
definition of
they
mid.
just had to show up. Like
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
What
I
mid.
know we've said a couple of times now, and I really wonder now with like Esteban Ocon seeing how he did with 7 DNFs. Like, I know he said it. Like, what would happen if some of those DNFs were taken away? Where would he be finished?
It's
Like,
another
I mean, he
testament of
had
that.
exactly. He
Yeah.
had solid points to begin with, so it's like if you take away a few of those DNFs, it's like, hey, you might have something here.
If
But
you get rid of if you ignore the DNFs that he had, he ultimately had a better season than Pierre did because Pierre finished
Yeah.
4 points ahead of him and had way fewer DNFs. So
Yeah.
it just means that in the points, I mean, he had I think 7 DNFs and 12 points finishes. So if there's 22 races, that means there were only 3 races that he finished outside the points and actually finished. So he was very consistent when he wasn't crashing or having some type of mechanical issue or something like that. But yeah, let's speed round this because we're getting close. Aston Martin,
It's a tough one to speed round because
it's such a bang.
yeah, it's an incredible season for them. I mean, I don't want to go on a rant here. I'll let you, lead in with some of the information, but I'm very stoked to talk about my Aston Martin guys.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
Lance, driver pairing, Lance and Alonso. I feel like as you guys called Alpine a very strong driver pairing. I don't agree on this one. I think Fernando is very strong. Lance, not so much. Had some better races at the end of the year. At the end of the year, when Alonso was on the podium, he was finishing midfield, back of the points range. Had some DNFs. Lance had 4 DNFs, 12 points finishes. Alonso with only 2 DNFs, 19 points finishes. So every time Alonso was on the track and he didn't DNF, he was in the points.
I wish Stroll got a podium. The opportunity was there, but I guess Aston Martin car wasn't good enough, and Fernando just drags that car to the front.
Fernando outperforms the car.
Sets it up so well, and he's able to adjust to any style. And Stroll is okay. I tried to be a Stroll fan. He has podiums. He had that pole position. Like, Stroll is fine. He's an F1 tier driver. It's just like nowhere near Fernando.
Yeah.
No.
No, I think what I think would be interesting potentially is what if you had Fernando Alonso and his teammate be Valtteri Bottas at Aston Martin?
Well, that's a good
You destroy him.
Well,
I feel like
Bottas would be a good second driver there.
Driver.
Or Seb. I mean, I think we said this earlier in the season is like if Seb returns, Seb sees like through the hourglass,
Seb
like, whoa, hold on, wait, they're actually kind of good.
Seb beat Lance too, and he said he's open coming back. That's what Fernando said. He was open coming back, and he came back. Well, if Vettel pulls up, it's Vettel Alonso, the two former rivals, are now on the same team.
Could you?
That would be crazy.
The two knights in shining armor going to slay Goliath. Max.
Yes. I could also see that going horribly wrong and then be like,
oh god, yeah,
it could go both ways.
Like Destructor Championship.
We're talking this time next year. So Fernando Alonso finished the season with 23 points and
7 DNFs.
Yeah.
All DNFs were with his temeate Sebastian Vettel, where they crashed into each other.
Flashbacks to like 2012.
No. But the thing, I actually think that we're like way off track here because Lance is never leaving that seat unless Lawrence sells, in my opinion. Like that's
what I was gonna say. Yeah,
that's fair.
But I could see if, like, we know Lance had his injury very early in the season before Bahrain with his hand or his wrist. If something like that were to happen, I think it could be Vettel there. If he's still training, if he's up to it. Because if he's not up to it, then it's definitely Felipe Drugovich, which is their reserve driver. But I think it'd be cool if, like, for a race where maybe Aston Martin has nothing to lose towards the end of the season, kind of championship, kind of their position kind of locked in. There's people too far behind them and too far in front of them. They're like, let's just give it a shot,
Yeah.
So I'm completely out of the ballpark. We're a little bit far.
It's giving me like Uncle Drew vibes, like bringing back like the old team.
Oh my god!
Let's see if we can recapture some old glory.
Yeah, my last little tidbit talking about Aston is that Alonso post-season interviews has revealed that like this season has been one of his favorites of his entire career,
Yeah.
And he even compared him to his championship seasons. It's like it's felt so rewarding to be on a team that really expectations were so low going into this season, and knowing he was, I mean, one position away from being top 3 in the drivers' championship.
He was top 3 for a very long time,
Very long time, yeah.
Him, and then he ultimately dropped back. But
that's kind of what I'm saying is, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but these old dogs don't want to quit. Like, I mean, you put that fire in Alonso. I mean, he might be sticking around for another 3 or 4 years. Who knows? You know,
I think he will be.
Yeah, I keep that car quick and keep him happy, and then you might get even better results next year.
My best bet for Fernando Alonso retirement is 2026 when the regs change. He's gone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I think that's just like, it's pushing it as far as he could. And that was one of the main reasons he went to Aston Martin, was he was happy with where they were going development-wise, with how much money that they were putting into building new structures, new wind tunnels, all of that stuff, but also because they were willing to give him a multi-year contract at his age. Alpine wanted 1-year deals, and he said, no, I'm good. I'm leaving. No, Aston. And I think that worked out pretty well for him, given, he was, I mean, there were only one position, the constructors, ahead of Alpine, but in terms
much more competitive
seasons they had, much more competitive.
Yep,
absolutely. Finally, a good career move for Fernando Alonso. He kept moving to teams that fell off, and
yeah. Well, let's move on to a team who had quite literally the opposite of seasons to Aston Martin. Started off the year with, I think Lando had 6 pit stops in Bahrain, up to
disaster.
Podiums and podiums and podiums at the end of the year. Both drivers getting on the podium. McLaren, P4 in the constructors, Oscar Piastri 9th, and Lando 6th. It's just, I don't know what else to say. I mean, they were such strong competitors at the end.
It'd be so interesting. Yeah, it would have been so interesting if they were as consistent as they were at the end in the beginning. I think it's honestly one of the biggest what ifs of the season.
Absolutely.
100%.
Silverstone was a turnaround. It was so exciting to see them show up, fight for the win, fight for the podium, and then continue to be there almost the whole second half.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they could have easily been top 2, I feel like.
That's what I love about F1 is that the car development through the season, it could totally change the season throughout the year.
Yeah, it definitely had a big turnaround. Sorry. Lando was the only driver all year, I think, to truly put up a fight to Max Verstappen, especially in the second half of the season. In the closing stages, he was there. I mean, in Austin, I was getting nervous.
Yeah.
This is a Lando maiden win here. And then, here comes Max Verstappen again.
There's no wah. It's da.
You just hear it coming by, man. Here he comes.
Here he comes. Oscar Piastri also had a great rookie season. Is he rookie of the year? Because he should be.
Absolutely.
I think he is.
Oh, definitely.
Come out, but he's definitely rookie of the year. 97 points, only 3 DNFs. And arguably his maiden win before Lando with that sprint race win in Qatar. Sprint pole, sprint race win, able to hold off Max. Just
gotta love it.
Brilliant drives, I think.
Yep, fully agree. I mean, it was kind of funny to see the 2 very coherent and cohesive teammates.
Yeah.
I mean, not funny, I guess, but very, very good to see that, especially looking forward to that team for years to come. I mean, I never saw them have any problems on the track this season. They might have, again, I could be wrong, but off the track, very complacent with each other, very happy to run where they did. Both having, honestly, I would like to say mostly equally competitive cars. I know Lando obviously performed better, but you kind of look at it, he only had 1 DNF. It was at Vegas, unfortunate DNF especially.
Yeah.
And Oscar had 3. It's not a big margin. It still matters. It's still obviously, give or take, those results could have helped them get closer in points to one another. But still, it was a good cohesive unit to see between those 2 McLaren drivers.
Yeah. And of course, Lando does have the record for most podium finishes in Formula One without a win.
It's such a shame. He's such a nice guy.
I love Lando Norris. And I think him and Oscar are so well matched.
Agreed. Fully agreed.
Learning a lot
until
from
they fight for the title.
Yeah.
title rivals.
We'll
If
get there.
McLaren shows
We'll
up
get
next
there.
year.
We'll get there. I really think the McLaren will be the ones to take the fight to Red Bull. Unfortunately for you, Jason, I don't think it's going to be Ferrari. I think Ferrari needs to get their stuff together before they can be championship winners. I think Mercedes is trying to bring a whole new concept next year, and I think it's going to take them a couple years to be able to fully be at Red Bull's level.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, talking about Ferrari, just the strategy, nothing has really changed or fixed. I like that they found a new concept and they're developing it and understanding it. At least that's what I've heard. They have a very, very fast piano player called Charles Leclerc. My favorite song is MIA 23. So
yeah, he released 3 piano songs this year, starting with like you said, MIA 23 or Mia 23. It's he released that after Miami. Then he had he had one after Australia and one after Monaco. 3 piano songs, which did very well at the charts. Was actually number 1 on the charts for a couple days.
Insane.
Well, here's a question: will Leclerc win a Grammy or a championship first?
Oh.
Here's the question: will he win either? And I'm going to be attacked for saying that, but I don't. If Charles Leclerc continues at Ferrari, wanting to fulfill his godfather Jules Bianchi's legacy to the fullest, I don't know that he will be champion. Sorry. But that's how I feel. That's my thoughts.
Hey, this podcast is for honesty. This is for looking in the air. Now, if Jason wants to, say some harsh things now, he can. But
hey, Leclerc has clearly beaten Sainz in his whole time here. Points and stats wise, definitely not. They're super close. Sainz actually had, a win this year, which is awesome. But Leclerc is always faster, always out qualifying him. I don't know what the quality battle is, but even 2021, 2022, Leclerc was the number 1 driver, like 2/10 every qualifying.
Yeah.
But that pole to win conversion rate, 4 out of 23. That's a whole season of pole positions, and we only had 4 wins out of it. 23 pole positions. Just got Ferrari as a team needs to get their act together. That's all.
We need to play some motorsport management over the
off.
I try to avenge the Ferrari name. It doesn't always work.
Well, the 2 drivers that TikTok has deemed part-time drivers, full-time models, have had to do a lot of strategy from behind the cockpit this year, including last race. Charles tried his hardest, like we talked about last podcast, to make it through.
He's gonna make a great strategy engineer post racing.
Oh, I agree.
Oh yeah, he's got to be at a Ferrari too. Just make it full circle.
Like he has the Ferrari contract, Ferrari driver on the resume, Ferrari strategist on the resume. He's gonna get hired by Ferrari fixer strategy when he's like 50. Like.
Oh, let's move on to the team that did end up beating Ferrari in the championship. Mercedes, P2 in the championship. Another pretty equal driver pairing, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Russell with 4 DNFs, 18 points finishes. So if he wasn't out, he was in the points. And Lewis as well, only the 1 DNF. And every other time he was in the points. Yeah. So very consistent, both drivers.
Considering why
they took it.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, considering the car they had, they did pretty well, I'd say.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, dang impressive of Lewis Hamilton to be P3 in the points championships for drivers in that car. I mean, that's listen, testament, whatever your opinion is on the man. I mean, in that car, finishing 3rd in the points. I mean, 1 DNF as well. That comes with the turf of DNF is hit. That's a 7-time champion. He's going to take care of his stuff. He's going to get there at the end. Yeah. It's just honestly one of the most impressive things of the season to me was we saw in the later stages of the season the Mercedes dropping back, not having the means or the legs to get there. But I guess somewhat along the lines, he was consistent, managed to secure P3, and credit where credit's due.
Yeah, I mean, those teams that we've just been talking about, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin, they fought for that P2 behind Red Bull between the 4 of them all season long. You got to every racetrack and nobody knew who's coming out, right behind Red Bull, who's going to be, pushing Max Verstappen. And Mercedes, with that consistency, even though they may not have had the best car, with that consistency, they know how to win races, as they've proven by being, 8-time Constructors Championships
Yep.
in a row? Yep. Is it 8 in a row? Or is it just 8 total?
Yeah, 8 in a row. 8 Constructors. 8 in a row. 2014 to 21, yeah.
Even with a bad car, they can call the strategy perfectly to optimize their races. They know how to put a proper setup together. You said it, Lewis is very experienced. He can optimize that setup. And George, on the other hand, with that Williams experience, being in a car back of the grid that's a little bit more tricky to drive, he also had that experience, which made him extremely consistent, both of them. But let's move on. Red Bull. Constructors winners. Max Verstappen. We've talked about them a lot this year. They've won every race but the one that Carlos Sainz did win. Sergio Perez coming with just 2 wins, 9 podiums though, 19 points finishes and 2 DNFs, 285 points, less than half that of his teammate Max Verstappen. Drivers' Championship winner, 575 points, no DNFs, 21 podiums, 19 victories.
Max Verstappen won the Constructors' Championship this year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
by a little bit too, wasn't even that close.
But Perez still finished P2, so it's like, was it really that bad of a year? Like, it wasn't when Bottas finished like P5 in 2018. Like,
that's what I was actually about to say is actually kind of surprising of the stats of how much we dogged on Sergio is 2 DNFs, only 2. I mean, compared to the rest of the field, that's actually not that bad. But, for how much we dogged him, I would have thought that number would have been like 4.
Well, technically he had 3 DNFs because he double DNF'd in Suzuka when his teammate race. He crashed into not 1, but 2 people, Lewis and K-Mag, and then DNF'd, but then had a penalty. So he comes out of the box and is like, I'm just going to serve my penalty and go back.
Yep.
Oh, man.
I don't think it wasn't that he had like the worst season ever, but if you look at it with only 9 podiums compared to his teammate with 21, in the car that they had, he should have had a better season, even if he was second.
The bare minimum.
Exactly.
To get second, yeah.
And I think the way, we compared him to Alex, I was comparing him earlier to Alex. If you compare, I think if Alex was in that car, he arguably would have done a better job.
Yeah. Possibly.
And if Rick gets in that car, he'll also do a better job. And that's the only argument I have with Checo, is that I don't think he's the best man for the job at the moment.
But does Red Bull want that? Do they want someone to possibly challenge Max Verstappen?
I think they want someone who can consistently finish second, not someone that is going to be further back.
That is fair.
At the time, I do think that if someone were to come in and challenge Max, I think it would cause a lot of headaches for Red Bull.
That's what I mean.
They lost the Constructors in 2021. Perez didn't beat Bottas. So that lost them the Constructors, and they need a driver that can get them the Constructors too. So if this season wasn't as dominant as it was for Max, and there's a couple teams closer, they wouldn't have won the Constructors. I think Perez would have been the deciding factor and weighed the team down.
Yep, totally fair.
Yep, and moving on as the regulations get, as we have these consistent regulations for a couple more years, the teams are going to get closer and closer. The last season of the old regulations was 2021. Look what happened. We had 2 teams consistently up there fighting so hard. Goes down to the very last race of the season. I think in the coming years, it's going to be the same. I mean, it can even be the same next year. I mean, every team seems to be kind of going in Red Bull's direction. That's what McLaren kind of did. McLaren's going Red Bull's direction. Red Bull, however, have said that they plan on bringing a very new car next year, which scares me because that could either go very wrong or very right. So maybe we're talking McLaren versus Ferrari next year and nothing to do with
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
But
I'm excited. Me and I got a lot more to argue about. That's the case next year.
Oh, yeah.
Let's quickly talk about some of the news that we've had this week. First and foremost, Max's physio, Bradley, he is moving on. He's not going to be Max's physio next year. He posted a very cute message with some pictures on Instagram. 4 years, 368 flights, 3 world championships, and 1 great friend. I'm gonna miss you, mate. He said maybe I added a few percent here and there, but you keep doing you, my friend. And this is just a small part of your magical story. Thank you for being a part of my story. So very cute. Kind of final words. Abu Dhabi was his last race with Max, and Max's new trainer will be Carlos Sainz's ex physio, who said if you can't beat him, join him.
Yeah.
Max just loves to steal people from other people, huh?
Yeah.
Stole a girlfriend, an F1 seat, a daughter, now a physio.
Fair enough.
That's crazy.
Oh,
Well, your top dog, I mean, maybe it kind of matters a little bit. Who knows?
Like you said, ultimately comes down to the driver and the car, but the driver has to be in tip-top shape, so it does add a percentage here and there, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of physios, Michael Italiano, former performance coach of Danny Ricciardo, who is working with Yuki this year, also leaving F1. And if we move to Mercedes had quite the eventful post-race in Abu Dhabi. Not only did one of their team members lose their wedding ring in the marina, someone dove in to get it, found it with a metal detector, but they also had a huge crash due to a car failure in the postseason test.
No more budget cap. Goodness.
Kind of a rough postseason. However, they did say that their next year's car will be a completely different concept, probably somewhere along the lines of Red Bull in black. So we'll see what comes from Mercedes. Also, not great news for them. Monster Energy has officially dropped sponsoring them. They will continue to sponsor Lewis, but they have decided to back what I would consider right now the better horse in McLaren. So they will be McLaren sponsors in 2024.
Can't wait to see that Monster Red Bull rivalry commence.
I'm excited to see maybe a livery because McLaren pretty much spotlighted all of their sponsors this year on their own individual liveries. So I mean, I can't even believe I'm using the word livery. I'm a paint scheme guy, but still, yeah. So I'm excited. I don't know. Maybe if they're going to be a primary sponsor of some kind. Who knows? Maybe they'll get their own paint scheme at some point. But yeah,
I hope so. I felt like Monster didn't get much out of the Mercedes partnership. Like they got like Lewis Hamilton special edition Monster, and like you saw Monster here and there in the garage, but I don't think it was even on the car. They really didn't.
So strange to me.
Yeah, I hope it's on the McLaren. The colors will clash, but I think it'll look cool.
Yeah, who knows? Well, I mean, depending on what Monster wants to put on the car, maybe they'll put on their sugar-free version, or who knows? I don't know what the deal is going to look like, but
they could pull it off. They have different colors, different flavors.
Yeah, they got all sorts of colors. They got the whole rainbow, man. They can make something.
Oh
yeah.
That Chrome and Monster logo gonna go hard.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to our last bit of news, the FIA president said that he would bring back Michael Massey. He would rehire him. Thoughts?
I mean, whatever.
have a thought.
Jason has a thought.
The 2021 is kind of egregious. He had a rule book and he didn't follow it. Technically, he had the authority to do that, so that's why he was just shuffled aside. He wasn't even fired. He was put in some safety coordinator advisor role before finally leaving the FIA throughout the next season. Yeah. So as much as it sounds shocking that he would rehire him, I don't think it would be for race director. It would be for one of those side roles, like safety director of Formula 3. So I think if you just take the racing away from him and have him train the marshals and be out of the way, it's kind of egregious. But this is still a motor racing professional that's been in the sport for years. But I don't think it's that controversial.
Go away. We're going to have you go teach the kids. Have some fun.
Take care.
This is the rule book. It goes out the window.
You see this flag? Don't use it. Yellow means go, okay?
Anyways, before we move on to our quote of the day, lightning quick, best race of the year in your personal opinion.
Race of the year. I'll shoot first.
Monza. Because Ferrari fought for the lead. It was the first time they're really competitive all year. They had an awesome livery. I know, and it's a loss.
That's kind of what I was going to hint at. Monza was like our most exciting race in terms of the paint schemes and the liveries. Because I think Alfa had a special scheme. Ferrari had a special scheme. And I swear there was another team that had something special going on that weekend. I can't remember. Again, I love my paint schemes, so that's kind of be my opinion. But it's going to be that guy. It's got to be Singapore. Singapore's got to be the best race of the year. Some variety. I mean, it's the one race of the year that a Red Bull car didn't end up P1.
There you go.
Variety is the spice of life. So I'm going with Singapore. I'm curious as to what Steven's going to say, but that is my choice.
I'm feeling Vegas, honestly.
Oh, good pull.
I
guess you guys can kind of weigh on this. I don't know if it necessarily, went to his expectations, like how much is built up. But you know what? It turned out to be a pretty good race, I felt like, considering the situation.
Miami never did.
Yeah.
I think Vegas could be around for a while.
Miami wishes it could be.
True.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I think also it looked at the beginning of the weekend like they were totally flailing. They were not meeting expectations. They had all those issues. But then the race turned out to be really good. And a lot of drivers had a lot of critiques about the track layout. And we all thought this is going to be the worst race ever, those long straights. But it turned out to be a great track, I think.
Yeah.
And one that could be exciting for the next 10 years. I'm going to go with Australia.
Okay.
Wild race.
Australia was wild. It's one that I don't usually particularly like just because of the time of it is, because of the time zones. And I'm like half asleep during it, but that woke me up real quick. And it was really,
up for that. Yeah.
All right. Quote of the day. Tell me we have it. The only hint is it is a quote from this year.
Oh my God. Gosh. I swear I just saw this video.
Is that Max Verstappen?
I'm going to let everybody guess before I say yes or no.
Is it Max Verstappen?
I feel like that's Max.
Is it Sainz going for a pole position?
Tristan, you want to give a guess?
Oh, no, I'm blanking so hard. I'm going to go with Steven. I'm going to say Max. I feel like I just saw this video on social media.
Well, Jason is the winner once again. It is Ferrari, Carlos Sainz in Italy.
Italy, okay. I was wondering what race. That sounds like something Sainz would say. I was like, it has to be for pole, not Q3 knockout. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we just saw that video. Dang.
I'm like 3-0 or something on this.
Oh, something like that. 3-0, 4-0.
He's putting up Max numbers here. What's going on?
I don't know how I remember this stuff. It's crazy.
Taking the
I wish I had that remember.
For close today. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching our podcast. If you want more from us, we do Tech Tuesday, Wag Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, Fun Fact Friday, and Man on the Street videos on our TikTok and Instagram at Lights Out Latest. And of course, we have our podcast episodes every Monday at 11:30 Eastern Time.
And Marina, how many more days do we have until preseason testing starts?
I don't think the number that I have is accurate. I want to say it's like 82.
It's a small enough number anyways. We're almost there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
It's the insert Carlos Sainz meme of like staring off into the sunset, like waiting for
yeah.
Waiting for Bahrain.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
Adios.